Elara Miles stepped onto the platform of the Galactic Union's Grand Assembly, her heart beating in tandem with the low hum of the station. The vast hall was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, their varied forms casting an array of shadows under the soft, ambient light. Elara's gaze flickered across the crowd, stopping at the towering figure of General Zorvok, his chitinous armor gleaming darkly under the hall's lights. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Union," Elara began, her voice amplified to reach the far corners of the room. "I stand before you not just as a representative of humanity but as an advocate for peace and cooperation. The issue at hand is the mining rights of Viridia, a planet rich in resources but also in potential for conflict." General Zorvok rose, his height and stature silencing the murmurs in the assembly. "Peace? Humans know nothing of peace. You come to strip Viridia of its wealth, a planet we, the Kthrak, have claimed by our laws and might." Elara met his gaze, unflinching. "General, the laws of might no longer hold as they once did. We are here to propose a joint venture, one that benefits all, not just the strongest." Zorvok's laugh boomed through the hall. "And why would we share what we can take by force?" "Because war, General, is costly," Elara countered. "It drains more than it yields. This assembly was founded on the principle of mutual benefit. I propose a demonstration of good faith from both our peoples. Let us explore Viridia together, assess its resources, and negotiate based on equality, not dominance." The general snorted, sitting back down with a heavy thud. "Very well, human. We will see if your words hold any value." As the assembly adjourned, Elara's communicator buzzed discreetly. She stepped into the shadows, pressing the device to her ear. "Report," she whispered. "Teams in position on Viridia. We've found something, Elara. It's big. But there's a problem. The Kthrak have already started their operations, and they're not just mining." Elara's brow furrowed. "Keep me updated. Avoid engagement until we know more. I'm heading to Viridia." The journey to Viridia was tense, the silence of space juxtaposing the storm brewing in Elara's mind. Upon landing, she was greeted by Talon Rowe, the Viridian scientist who had been assisting her team. His expression was grave. "Elara, the Kthrak are not just mining. They're militarizing. If they gain full control over Viridia's resources—" "I know," Elara interjected. "It could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. We need to gather evidence and present it to the Galactic Union." Together, they ventured into the dense jungles of Viridia, the air thick with the scent of alien flora. The ground vibrated subtly underfoot, a sign of the extensive mining operations nearby. As they approached the mining site, hidden by the thick underbrush, Elara's eyes caught the glint of metal through the foliage. "There," she pointed. "Let's get closer." They edged nearer, the sounds of machinery growing louder. Through a gap in the vegetation, Elara saw Kthrak soldiers overseeing the operation, their weapons prominently displayed. "Recording this," whispered Elara, her device capturing the scene. "This is not standard mining. They're fortifying their positions." Suddenly, a twig snapped underfoot. Instantly, the site erupted in chaos, alarms blaring as the Kthrak soldiers turned their weapons towards the noise. "Run!" Talon hissed, pulling Elara back as they dashed into the jungle, the sounds of pursuit filling the air behind them. They ran until the dense trees began to thin, the sounds of pursuit fading. Gasping for breath, Elara checked her device. "Got everything. This should be enough to convince the Union." But as they made their way back to the ship, a new problem arose. The sky darkened ominously, a storm rolling in with unnatural speed, lightning arcing across the sky with violent intensity. Elara looked up, realizing the storm was no natural phenomenon, it was a weapon, altering Viridia's atmosphere. "They're terraforming the planet," Talon said, his voice edged with panic. "If they succeed, Viridia will become uninhabitable for anyone but the Kthrak." Elara's mind raced. Returning to the Union without stopping the terraforming would be futile. They needed to act, and fast. "Talon, we need to find their terraforming hub. It's the only way to stop this." Navigating through the now chaotic weather, they found the hub, a towering structure pulsing with energy. Elara didn't hesitate. She set the charges, her hands steady despite the quaking ground. As they retreated to a safe distance, Elara detonated the explosives. The hub erupted in a fiery blast, the storm immediately beginning to dissipate as the system shut down. "We need to get this information out," Elara said, her determination clear. "The Cthulhu's actions must be exposed." With the evidence secured and Viridia's immediate threat neutralized, Elara contacted the Galactic Union. The video of the Cthulhu's militarization and the illegal terraforming played before the assembly, the representatives watching in shocked silence. General Zorvok stood, fury etched in every line of his body. "This is not the end, human." Elara met his gaze, her voice resolute. "No, it's not the end, General. It's a new beginning. For all of us." Elara leaned against the cool metal wall of her ship as it hurtled towards the Galactic Union station. Her mind raced with strategies and scenarios, each more precarious than the last. Her communicator beeped, a message from her assistant, updating her on the mood back at the Union. Elara pressed the device to her ear, listening intently. "The Cthulhu are making moves in the assembly, rallying for support against us. They're painting us as aggressors," her assistant reported, worry straining her voice. "Understood," Elara replied curtly. "Keep me posted. I'll handle it from here." She clicked off the communicator, her gaze hardening. This was not just a battle for resources but a battle for the narrative. As the ship docked, Elara strode through the corridors of the Union Station with a composed urgency. She entered the assembly hall just as a heated debate took place. She caught snippets of the conversation, the Cthulhu using their momentary advantage to skew the council's perception. General Zorvok stood at the podium, his voice booming across the chamber. "And so we see the true face of humanity, ready to exploit, ready to wage war over what they cannot have." Elara's steps quickened, and she approached the podium, signaling for a chance to speak. The room fell into a murmuring suspense as she was granted the floor. "Esteemed members," she began, her voice calm yet carrying a razor-sharp edge. "What you hear are the desperate claims of those who know their deceit is close to being uncovered. Yes, we seek access to Viridia, but not for exploitation, nor for dominance." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We seek partnership. We seek to share its bounty with all who will share in its responsibility. And yes, we will stand against any who threaten not just us, but any member of this union with unjust war." Murmurs filled the hall, her words stirring the assembly. General Zorvok sneered, "Pretty words, human. But where is your proof? Where is the evidence of this supposed fairness and honor?" Elara smiled thinly, pulling out her device to project images of the Cthulhu militarizing parts of Viridia, not merely mining but preparing for war. The room gasped as the images flickered over the walls, undeniable proof of Zorvok's hypocrisy. "We do not come here to start wars, General. We come to prevent one," Elara stated firmly, the images cycling behind her, Cthulhu soldiers, heavily armed, and fortifications being built around Viridia's rich mines. The general's face turned a shade darker, his stance defensive. "This is a security measure," he blustered. "Protection against your aggression. Is it?" Elara challenged, turning to address the assembly. "Or is it an aggressive expansion disguised as defense? We all know the Cthulhu Empire's history. We know their doctrine, conquer, not cooperate. But that is not the way of the Union." She let her gaze sweep across the representatives, each one now listening intently, weighing her words against the evidence. "We have a choice today. We can choose the path of mutual growth, or we can let fear and greed lead us into needless conflict." The assembly was silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Elara continued, "I propose a joint investigation into Viridia's activities. Let impartial observers from the Union determine the truth." A murmur of agreement began to rise among the assembly, the tide turning in her favor. General Zorvok, realizing his position was weakening, grumbled but conceded, "Let this investigation proceed then. We have nothing to hide." Elara nodded, her expression resolute. Then let it be done. Let us show that the Union stands for justice and truth, not just the might of the powerful. As the council agreed to send an investigative team to Viridia, Elara stepped down from the podium, her heart lighter but her mind still wary. She knew this was only a temporary victory. The real challenge lay ahead, ensuring the investigation was fair and unobstructed by those who wished to twist its findings. Returning to her quarters, Elara immediately contacted her team. Prepare everything. We'll need to support the investigative team. Make sure they see everything. Yes, ma'am, her team responded, the line crackling with renewed determination. Elara looked out the viewport, stars streaking past. The battle for Viridia was far from over, but today, they had won a crucial skirmish. And in the grand tapestry of galactic politics, each small victory wove the path toward a larger triumph. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with more dangers, more negotiations, and more chances to either bridge divides or deepen them. But for now, Elara Miles had steered the ship true, and she was ready for whatever storms may come. Elara paced back and forth in her makeshift command center aboard her vessel, orbiting Viridia. The investigative team from the Galactic Union was due to arrive within hours, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Her team had gathered substantial evidence, but presenting it effectively was critical to maintaining the fragile alliance they were building. "Are we ready?" she asked sharply, stopping in front of Merrick, her lead security officer. "Yes, we've secured the landing area for the Union team, and all evidence packages are prepared and double-checked," Merrick confirmed, handing her a tablet displaying the operation's logistics. "Good. Let's go over the plan one more time," Elara insisted, her eyes scanning the room, locking eyes with each member of her team to instill the gravity of their task. "Once the team lands, we escort them directly to the mining sites. They need to see everything, both our findings and the Kthrak fortifications." "What if the Kthrak try to interfere?" asked Jalen, her communications officer. "That's why we're going in full force. I don't expect them to play fair, but we'll be ready. We'll have diplomatic and security protocols in place." "Escalation is the last resort," Elara responded, her tone leaving no room for uncertainty. As the team acknowledged her instructions, Elara turned her attention back to the mission at hand. Every move they made now had to be precise, there was no margin for error. Hours later, the Galactic Union shuttle touched down. Elara, flanked by her security detail, greeted the investigation team, a mix of species, each chosen for their neutrality and expertise. She wasted no time in briefing them as they boarded armored transports to the site. "The situation on the ground is volatile," Elara explained to the team leader, a seasoned diplomat named Saul. "The Kthrak have not only mined but militarized the area. We've documented everything and will share it with you during our tour." Saul nodded, his expression unreadable. "We appreciate your transparency, Ambassador Miles. The Union values facts, and we're here to gather them without bias." The convoy moved through the rugged terrain of Viridia, the alien landscape a stark backdrop to the tension within the transports. Upon arriving at the first site, Elara led the team through a series of excavations, each step carefully planned to reveal the scale of the Kthrak operations. "Here you can see the extent of the fortifications," Elara pointed out as they overlooked a vast field dotted with heavy artillery and troop encampments. "This isn't standard mining equipment, these are military installations." Saul and his team took notes, their devices humming softly as they captured images and data. The gravity of the situation seemed to settle over the group, their earlier neutrality shifting towards concern. As they proceeded to the next site, a sudden commotion broke their focus. Kthrak soldiers appeared, blocking their path. The leader, a towering figure, stepped forward. "This area is off-limits," he barked, his voice carrying an edge of warning. "You are trespassing on Kthrak sovereign territory." Elara stepped forward, her presence commanding. "This is a sanctioned Union investigation. We have every right to inspect these sites. Stand down, or you will face consequences from the Galactic Union." The standoff was tense, the air thick with the potential for conflict. Saul watched closely, his earlier neutrality giving way to a frown of disapproval at the Kthrak's tactics. "We will not be intimidated," Saul declared firmly. "Continue with the inspection." After a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, the Kthrak leader stepped aside, his soldiers reluctantly following suit. The team continued, but the incident had clearly illustrated the lengths to which the Kthrak were willing to go to protect their interests. The rest of the visit proceeded without interference, but the tension never fully dissipated. As they returned to the transport, Saul approached Alara. "Your concerns were not overstated, Ambassador," he admitted. "This will be a detailed report. The Union must consider the implications of what we've seen today." Alara nodded, aware that while this was a victory, it was only a battle in a much larger war. "Thank you, Saul. The future of Viridia, and perhaps the balance of power in the Union, may depend on your report." Back on her ship, Alara convened with her team, the weight of the day's events settling around them. "We've done everything we can. Now, it's up to the Union to act. Prepare for all possible outcomes." The team acknowledged, understanding that the coming days would determine much more than the fate of a single planet. As Viridia's twin suns set against the horizon, casting long shadows over the land, Alara watched from her viewport, her resolve as firm as ever. This was humanity's chance to redefine its place in the galaxy, not through might, but through the power of truth and diplomacy. She was ready for whatever came next. In the dimly lit conference room of her ship, Alara Miles reviewed the Galactic Union's investigative report with her closest advisors. The report was damning. It detailed not only the Kthrak's unauthorized military installations but also their attempts to hinder the investigation. Alara leaned back in her chair, scanning the faces of her team. "This report is our leverage. We must use it wisely to negotiate not just for access to Viridia but to ensure its protection under Union laws." Her chief strategist, Lennox, nodded, tapping notes into his device. "We need to present this to the Union Council immediately. The Kthrak will be doing damage control, but this gives us the upper hand." Alara sighed, feeling the weight of the coming days. "Schedule the presentation. It's time the Council sees the full extent of Kthrak violations." The journey back to the Galactic Union Station was tense, filled with preparations and rehearsals for the upcoming Council session. Alara's team worked tirelessly, compiling visuals and transcripts, creating a compelling narrative to accompany the investigative report. Upon arrival, Alara was greeted by a buzz of activity at the Union Station. News of the report had leaked, and the atmosphere was charged with anticipation and anxiety. As she made her way to the council chamber, representatives from various species approached her, expressing their concerns and seeking alliances. In the council chamber, the air was thick with tension. Representatives filled the seats, murmuring amongst themselves as Alara took her place at the podium. General Zorvok was there, his expression dark and foreboding. The president of the council called the session to order. "We are here to discuss the findings of the Union's investigative team regarding activities on Viridia. Ambassador Miles, you have the floor." Alara stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "Thank you, President. Members of the Council, what we have uncovered on Viridia goes against everything this Union stands for. The Kthrak Empire has not only broken our most sacred laws but has endangered the stability of our galaxy." She motioned, and images from the report flashed across the screens around the room, pictures of military encampments, detailed logs of intercepted communications, and videos of the Kthrak hindering the investigative team. "As you can see, this is not mere preparation for defense. This is preparation for war," Alara continued, her voice steady and strong. Whispers erupted around the room as the implications sank in. Alara waited, letting the evidence speak for itself before she continued. "The Kthrak's actions threaten not just humanity but every member of this Union who values peace and justice. I urge the Council to take decisive action. We must not only sanction the Kthrak but also oversee the demilitarization of Viridia." General Zorvok stood, his voice booming across the chamber. "These accusations are preposterous. We have always acted within our rights to protect our interests. Alara met his gaze, unflinching. Protecting one's interests, General, does not include building a war machine on disputed territory. You have been caught in clear violation of Union laws. The debate that followed was intense. Representatives took turns speaking, some calling for harsh sanctions, others cautioning against escalating tensions. Through it all, Alara remained focused, countering objections and reinforcing her points with evidence from the report. As the session drew to a close, the president called for a vote. The tension was palpable as representatives cast their votes. Finally, the results were displayed: a majority favored sanctions and the demilitarization of Viridia. General Zorvak's face was thunderous as he stormed out of the chamber, but around Alara, the room burst into a cacophony of voices, some congratulatory, others concerned about the future. Alara felt a momentary relief, but she knew this victory was just one step toward a larger goal. "We have won a battle today," she told her team as they gathered around her. "But the war for peace is far from over. Let's prepare for what comes next." As they exited the council chamber, Alara's mind was already racing with strategies for the negotiations to come. She was determined to see Viridia become a symbol of unity and cooperation, not a battleground. Her resolve was firm, and she was ready to lead the charge. The days following the council's decision were a whirlwind of activity. Alara Miles worked tirelessly, orchestrating negotiations and overseeing the implementation of the council's directives. Viridia was to become a test case for a new kind of interstellar diplomacy, and Alara was at its helm. Her communicator buzzed incessantly as she coordinated with various Union departments, ensuring that the sanctions on the Kthrak were enforced and the demilitarization process was transparent. Each conversation was a delicate balance of firmness and diplomacy, her resolve unyielding. "Alara, the Kthrak have agreed to the first round of inspections," Merrick reported during one of their strategy sessions. "They seem to be cooperating, but we should remain vigilant." "Good. Let's not take their cooperation at face value. Keep a close watch on all their movements," Alara responded, her mind already racing through the next steps. As the demilitarization progressed, Alara initiated a series of community outreach programs on Viridia. It was crucial that the planet's native population, the Viridians, were not just bystanders in their own land. She met with Viridian leaders, listening to their concerns and ensuring they had a voice in shaping their future. "I assure you, your rights and your land will be protected," Alara promised the Viridian Council. "This is not just about extracting resources, it's about building a partnership that benefits everyone." The Viridians, wary but hopeful, agreed to engage in the new framework Alara was proposing. Slowly, what had started as a military standoff was transforming into a collaborative endeavor. Meanwhile, back at the Union Station, Alara faced political maneuvering that threatened to undermine the progress. Old rivalries and new alliances formed as representatives jockeyed for influence over Viridia's future. In one particularly tense meeting, a faction of the council argued for reducing the sanctions on the Kthrak, motivated by political gains rather than justice. "We need to consider the broader implications of alienating the Kthrak. They are a key military power in the sector," one counselor argued. Alara stood firm. "If we back down now, we send a message that violations of Union laws can be negotiated away. We must stand firm on our principles." The debate was heated, but Alara's steadfastness swayed the opinion of enough members to maintain the sanctions until full compliance was achieved. Her diplomatic skill and unwavering integrity kept the council aligned with her vision. With the political groundwork laid, Alara focused on cementing the peace. She organized a summit on Viridia, inviting leaders from across the galaxy to witness the transformation of the planet from a militarized zone to a model of cooperation and peace. As the summit commenced, Alara addressed the gathering, her voice echoing in the assembly hall built on Viridian soil. "Today, we stand together on Viridia, not as conquerors, but as partners. We have shown that even in the depths of conflict, there is a path to peace and understanding." The audience listened intently, moved by the sight of a once contested world now hosting a celebration of unity. The summit concluded with the signing of the Viridia Accords, a set of agreements outlining the shared management of the planet's resources and the ongoing commitment to peace and environmental stewardship. As the delegates departed, a sense of accomplishment filled the air, but Alara knew that the hardest work, maintaining the peace, was still ahead. She watched the sunset over Viridia's horizon, the sky painted with hues of hope and determination. "Merrick, make sure our teams are ready for the next phase. We'll need to monitor compliance and support the Viridians in their new roles," she instructed, turning to face her trusted aide. "Of course, Alara. We're just getting started," Merrick replied, his voice steady and confident. Alara nodded, her gaze fixed on the future. "Yes, we are. Let's make sure this peace lasts longer than the memories of the war it ended." With that, Alara Miles stepped back from the balcony, her silhouette a beacon of leadership and resolve, ready to guide Viridia and the Union into a new era of interstellar diplomacy and mutual respect.